Berto, you have a topic. Go.
So today's topic is going to be about something that happened in Seattle, actually. I don't know if you heard about it, but there was a CEO that made some news a few years back for doing something really nice for his employees. Gained a lot of national attention.
What's his name?
Dan Price.
He was the guy that decided to pay all of his employees a huge salary.
Yeah. Well, so I have some questions to start with for you. But, before I get to the questions, then everyone was kind of in love with the CEO. Not everyone, actually. There were some naysayers, and I'll get to that. But then there's some bad news came out about things that he allegedly has done to women and employees. And he has since had to resign, and he's been in some legal troubles and things like that. So we're going to get into that because it's sort of a heartbreaking story. There was a really powerful message that he was delivering, and then it's kind of turned into a sour thing.
Well, I'm curious as to what this story entails, but let's introduce the podcast. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I repair cameras that are broken. Okay, so first off, what do you think is the median household income in the U.S. as of 2020, like
maybe
recently?
Is it 48,000 or something?
It's a little higher, 68,000, but, and that's median, so like half above, half below. What about the highest median household income by state? Which state do you think has the highest, and about how much do you think it is?
Highest state income.
Median, yeah.
Median income. Boy, somewhere in the Northeast, I'm guessing. New York or...
That's what I would have probably guessed.
Massachusetts or something.
Or yeah, so it's Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would not have been my guess, but
68,000 was the median US. What do you think is the Maryland highest median?
78?
It's 94. It's quite a bit higher.
Wow.
Which it's surprising that it's quite a bit difference. What about the lowest household income? What state and how much?
Alaska.
Interesting. Okay. But don't they get like the oil subsidies?
Wyoming or
yeah, right.
Mississippi.
Yes, Mississippi. How much?
48.
Close, 45. Yeah. Again, this is recent. This is okay. Right. So already we're
What's
talking.
Seattle? Is Seattle like 120 or something?
It's 110 now, 115, something like that. But that's now. So let's rewind the clock to 2015 when this whole thing starts. So median Seattle household income in 2015, what do you think it was?
In the United States?
Median household income in Seattle in 2015.
2015. Well, inflation and we're pulling out of the recession, but we never actually took a huge dip in Seattle. So if we're at 115 today, 95-ish.
Yeah, that would have been my guess. 80. So it's still a little lower, but still higher.
So it's really skyrocketed in the last bit of time.
It has. And even back then, it's still much higher. It's almost close to the highest current median income in any state. Okay, so that was 80. What do you think the average CEO pay for the top 350 firms in the U.S., not just Seattle, in 2015 was?
The average?
Average CEO pay.
In 2015?
In 2015. Top 350 firms.
I mean, I'm going to be way off, but I know it's in the millions, like 10 million.
Yeah, 15.5 million. That's not way off. 15.5 million. So CEOs in general were making around 276 or around that much times more than a typical employee.
Yeah,
right?
We are in the United States notorious for having some of the largest, if not the largest, income disparity between the highest and lowest paid employee.
And this wasn't necessarily the case back in, I think, the 50s or 60s, something
even
like that.
70s.
In 70s, yeah.
Okay. Like in countries like Japan, they could pay their CEOs that much money, but they don't.
So in this context of 2015 in Seattle, this company, Gravity Payments is the name of the company.
Gravity
Payments. They do digital payments and stuff like that.
What does that mean? Like PayPal?
It's something like that, yeah, but it's a little more enterprise based, so not just for consumers.
What does that mean? Enterprise?
Yeah, like companies paying companies is what I gather.
Were there offices down on the waterfront?
I think so. They had a really nice office.
Yeah, I feel like I knew where they were. Yeah. Down by where Real Networks used to be.
Yeah. So in 2015, they had 120 employees, and the average salary of their 120 employees at the time was $48,000. So much lower than the median Seattle household income, but it's a salary.
But probably a lot of 20-something.
Yeah, right? It's not crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so this guy, Dan Price, comes out and says, I'm going to slash my own CEO salary to be able to raise everyone so that the minimum will now be $70,000. Big deal because, again, the household median income was 80.
So it was directly siphoning off of his salary.
According to the reports, yes.
So
now, I don't know
he's
if that
essentially
was
handing voluntarily.
Here's some of my money.
And did we get any ideas to where this came from? Like what his inspiration was? Like was he being pressured?
So at the time, from his own words, he felt that not only was the disparity gross, he felt that employees would work better, be happier, and therefore make the company more productive, and then claimed that the company ended up being 3 times more productive, or making it 3 times as much after this. So he saw it as the future. He thought that it's wrong that there should be such a disparity. He believes employees should have more money to live, especially in a place that's more expensive.
Yeah, 70,000 probably still does not cover regular Seattle expenses. It's bizarre that this was a news story. This should be the norm. And it's well understood in research that when you have employees that are making more money, you have more productivity, less burnout, more dedication, less turnover, less new employees, fewer new employees.
It makes sense.
And you would think that the leadership and the board would be interested in profit.
And in keeping employees around, all this stuff. Well, he was both praised. There was many articles that came out. The Guardian said, had one of the early articles, and they were talking about how some people said, hey, this guy is a lunatic. This is going to fail. A lot of them were more on the right wing because they were
who was saying that?
The same people that would claim that raising minimum wage is a terrible idea.
Yeah. So in Seattle, around the same time, we passed the highest minimum wage in the United States at, I think, 15. I remember there was all this talk about how it's going to ruin businesses. It's going to tank our economy. And guess what? It just improved things. All it did was just give people a working wage. Not even that, a living wage. Not even actually that much living wage. I mean, $15 an hour is $30,000 a year. You can't live off that. But at least you're not
a little breathing room.
Yeah, a little breathing room. And guess what? When poor people get a little bit more money, they spend that money,
and so it helps the economy.
Helps corporations, as opposed to CEOs. What in the fuck are they going to do with $15 million?
Stash it in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So, not surprisingly, places like Fox News call him lunatic of lunatics. Rush Limbaugh came out and said he's, if business leaders were to follow this, they would basically ruin their companies.
So when it didn't do that, and when we passed our minimum wage and the Seattle economy did just the same, if not better, did they apologize?
Yes, they all, including Rush, they really did come out and actually, oh wait, no, what reality was I in? Oh, sorry, no. Anyways, but at the time, there were people calling him the best boss in America.
Yeah.
So this is a really positive news, right? Like,
I remember thinking it was like, oh, this is the way of the future. This is how things are going to look like in the future.
Right. And then the guy is charming, young, good looking. He went on a lot of the talk shows and he had really good human moments. And so he was the talk of the town and everyone thought he was great, a great role model. So that's the end of the story. Good stuff.
What was his salary at the time? What did it?
I don't know. I don't have that data.
What's his name again?
Dan Price. Dan
Price. So according to this article, he was being paid $1 million a year as opposed to his $48,000 employee salary. And he reduced his salary to $70,000 as well.
Wow.
Or down to $100,000.
Okay.
And so so he was getting paid 100 and his lowest employee was getting paid 70. Right. So he went from $1 million to $100,000 a year.
Now that doesn't count as stock, but
still, I mean, that's impressive.
That is very impressive. So great story, right? Feel good. Everything's great. Unfortunately, even at the time.
Wait, let's take a break. When we get back, you'll tell us the unfortunate.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, we're back from the break. Dun, dun, dun.
Unfortunately, even at the time. So there was this reporter for the New York Times who, when they were doing all this positive press, she also wanted to, kind of do some positive press. But when she looked into things, there were some odd things that she found. For example, his ex-wife was claiming that he had been very abusive to her. there were ex-employees and other folks that claimed that he was a very difficult boss and very demanding and somewhat abusive, in different ways. So there was kind of like these stirrings of things that didn't seem quite right. And then he kind of disappeared from the limelight. So stories on both sides just kind of died down. When it resurfaced, it was because he had posted something saying that his employees had bought him a Tesla as a gift for being a great boss or whatever. And then, kind of buzz started back up. But then he actually got charged with some accusations. So there was a gal that claimed that they met, that she met him online, and that she was, interested in him because of the stuff that he had done. And then they started talking, and that they went out, and that then while she was intoxicated on cannabis, he had sex with her. So basically raped her. This was her claim. This was reported to the authorities.
Whoa, wait, so he forced himself on her?
This is what she claims, is that she was passed out, intoxicated.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a lot of...
In other words, that he had sex with her while she was...
Passed out.
Yeah.
From cannabis.
From drugs. It sounds like, she was on probably high on cannabis or something like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
It sounds unusual. I mean, it may be sleepy after cannabis, but... maybe other substances, alcohol.
Yeah, basically the thing is that she said...
I mean, I'm not questioning her story. I'm just...
She had an edible, and I can tell you from having had bad experiences with edibles, it's bad. But she said she took a cannabis edible to counter insomnia. And then something she's regularly done. So it turns out that she was in the Vegas hotel, or in the Vegas shooting. Remember that horrible shooting? Yeah. So she had PTSD since then and had trouble sleeping.
So she was at the concert.
She was at the concert.
Wow.
She survived, and she had PTSD. So she regularly took these edibles, it sounds like. So she took it, and she got sleepy. She drifted to sleep, and then she felt him penetrate her.
Oh, okay. So she didn't pass out from substances. She was she falls asleep, and he rapes her while she's sleeping.
She says she pretended to be asleep. And then worried. She says she was worried that he would kill her.
Right.
Okay. So that's the story.
If someone is willing to assault you while you're sleeping, that says something about the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And it raises a huge question mark about what else are they capable of. When in doubt, maybe just lie still, just freeze, and hope that things end and you can get through this alive. And it's a totally rational choice, because people say, well, how come you didn't say no? Or why didn't you push him off? It's ridiculous.
And so in addition to this, because what happened is that this stuff started surfacing because he actually got charged. And then the same New York Times article, the same New York Times reporter wrote a new article that came out in August detailing the fuller story. And the fuller story is that it's not just this accusation. Turns out that his ex-wife actually gave a TED talk that was never aired, but where she accused him of abuse.
Wait, so the ex-wife, was that the main point of her TED talk?
Yeah, so basically, Christy was her name. She had given a TEDx talk in 2015 where she described the relationship as abusive. I don't know if that was the whole point of the TED talk. The TED talk was never aired. But she said her claim was that he got mad when she ignored him, which, by the way, the other accuser also stated that he seemed to get upset that she was not paying attention to him, that he started punching her in the stomach and slapping her across the face. This is the ex-wife. Okay, so then she was very afraid and all these things. There's another account from another person that felt that he was being intimidating. And then there were accounts from ex-workers or even workers that claimed that he was both somewhat abusive in the workplace, but also that there had been some inappropriate sexual advances and things like that. So there's this pattern that started to emerge. And then most recently in August, after this article came out, he resigned, stating that, he doesn't want to become a distraction. He needs to focus full time on fighting these these allegations because they're all untrue and all this kind of stuff.
Ironically, this is when conservative media actually fell in love with him because he represents a victim of
the Men Too, whatever.
I'm joking. I don't know that.
No, but it could be because they go from hating him for slashing salaries to. So sadly, this is the state now: is that he is no longer the CEO. His original message is now basically
Tainted.
Drenched in this. And now he's dealing with legal accusations.
I don't know. To me, the guy has some allegations, and maybe he is a monster, and he's a psychopathic sadist, rapist. That's a problem, obviously. And he did a wonderful thing at one point that
absolutely
has really no bearing on his worth as a human being. But
that he was making is still valid.
Right. Similar to Bill Cosby, if you believe the dozens of allegations against him, Bill Cosby is a psychopathic sadist rapist who is a monster. And yet he did wonderful things for lots of people in their career, most notably the black community in the United States in the entertainment industry. And he used his power and his privilege to help and push things forward. And he did a lot of other great things, philanthropy, all these. So you can have both. You can have both of those things exist.
Absolutely. And where sadly another shoe drops here is that it turns out that apparently when he chose to do the salary thing, it was right when one of the accusations was coming forward or one of the lawsuits or something. So one of the claims is now that he was doing it to counteract the bad press.
Which I could see. I mean, that's why I was wondering. I'm like, what was the motivation?
I know, but if that's the case, that really is heartbreaking for me because it's like it goes from this really good role model to, wow, not only was, because you were just making a great point but the point is still valid. But then the point was a cynical point from him.
But the action was there's a lot of things he could have done. You know, think of all the other CEOs or people, men in power that will do other things to distract. You know?
Again, I don't know the guy. I don't know what his real motivations are. There seems to be a pattern from all the reports, from all the people. There seems to be a pattern that, I'm just going to use the word in the layman way. There seems to be some pattern of narcissism and wanting attention and kind of reveling in that attention. There seems to be a pattern of needing attention by the people that are close to him. And when he doesn't get that attention, there seems to be a pattern of him lashing out even in violent ways. Now, that said, the points he was making, whether they were cynical or just trying to cover whatever, I definitely agree with. I think it's wonderful that we would close the gap in earnings. Now, there is a counterpoint, which is that what freaks the true libertarians and capitalists out the most is that they believe that without the pure profit motive, we can't have true innovation and the great world-changing technologies and things like this. And what they believe is that the profit motive has to be unhindered. Like, I want to be able to make $6 billion, period. 10 billion, a billion. There is no strong evidence for that because we had amazing, great innovation at times where taxes were high and CEOs didn't make this much. But maybe a balance is in order. So maybe if you're someone that risks more, you should earn more. Fine.
CEOs, aside from Steve Jobs, who arguably did some of his great work when he wasn't CEO, CEOs don't do shit.
They don't have that as much control as one would think.
They don't do shit. They are a figurehead that goes to meetings. The real people are the Wozniaks. Those are the people that if you want to pay a lot of money to. I mean, take it from me. I work at a university. We have a provost. We have a president. We essentially have a CEO. He seems like a fine fella, but he is not teaching the students. He is not developing programs. He is not training clinicians. He's not recruiting students.
Yeah.
He's not marketing the programs. He's not keeping cohesion within the student body and that's where the profits are made in an organization. You look at any organization, you look at even tech organizations, unless the CEO is somehow a mastermind, a small business, right?
Yeah.
Where the CEO is also the R&D person or something and the marketing. But these large organizations, it's the vice presidents, the managers, the developers, the people, mid-level, bottom level sometimes. These are the people that are driving innovation, who are actually know what the product is and what it does and all those kinds of things. And so if you pay those people more, and maybe there's some magical formula, like you bring the CEO's salary down and you distribute it essentially to everyone at every level, right? So the $250,000 guy, or whatever gender they are, gets paid $300,000 or $350 or something, and then the $50,000 person earns 75. When everyone is feeling better about their job, and because I'll tell you, like for me, I've given myself raises at times as a self-employed person.
Right.
I can set how much I charge my clients, that kind of thing. And I'll tell you that when I would start to feel burnt out with my practice, and then I would raise because I was always way behind the curve with my fee.
Yeah.
Even though I had tremendous experience and expertise, I always just felt bad. But I would have supervisees that were recent grads. Charging twice as more as I was. And I'm like, something's wrong here. And so.
And you were doing it because you felt bad about charging that much?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like when I go to McDonald's, I expect the whole meal to be under $4.
Right.
But because I'm such an oldie now that, I'll go to a restaurant, fast food place, and I buy a meal for 3 people and it's like $35. and I'm like,
what the heck?
I'm like, that's not what? And I'll look at the receipt. And anyway, so I just think it has to do with that. But anyway, so every time I'd raise my rates, my burnout, a lot of it would go away.
Okay.
So because now some burnout has nothing to do with pay, it just has to do with being overworked.
But it would help you.
But it helps, because it feels like when you're getting up in the morning and you just feel like, hey, you know what? I'm being paid. I'm looking forward to getting a paycheck at the end of the month. This feels good to me. I feel productive. I'm building for the future, or whatever. It's well known, and this is just anecdotal, but we have tons of data behind this. And what I'll say is that this is a well-known, I didn't invent this, that in our culture in the United States, as compared to other cultures around the world, namely Japan, for example, we believe companies are one person.
Yeah.
Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, these kinds of people.
Personality, absolutely.
Or the president of the United States. We believe that it's just one person at the top that does everything. When other people around the world understand the reality, which is that an organization is a system, it's a collective, it's everyone has to play their part. So we as a society and as a board, and maybe even as an employee, we will hold up the leader as I don't even know, it's some sort of unworldly human being that somehow knows everything that's happening, is responsible for everything that's happening at the organization. Yeah. And that has to stop.
Well, and so it would be bad enough if it were salaries, right? Because you'd think, like, really, you're worth 200 times more than an average employee? Okay. But then you add the stock in, and stock makes things go nutty, right? Like, why is Elon Musk worth on paper $200 billion? Has he given $200 billion worth of value himself, right? Like, no, he was an early investor and got lucky, so he gets a big payoff. But that's all from the stock. And the stock is speculative, right? That's not even like, we sold this much. Here's the profit. Let's divide it up. That's not even that. That's all speculation. So that makes things get even more out of hand, because an average employee, a lot of employees don't even earn stock. The ones that do, they earn a fraction of the stock that the people, the founders or whoever earns. So by the time that the company is successful and it's public, the discrepancy balloons out to the stratosphere. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we need to change that ourselves. We are, as a society, to blame for this, because when you have a weird story of a guy who lowers his salary as a CEO, and it's national news and he does talk show tours like he saved 10 people, send children that fell down a well or something, like he's just some god, whereas in other countries that's the default. Maybe not 100,000 to 70,000, but something along those lines. The reason why this happens is because of us. And I wish that, like with the federal government, I have often will remind myself and sometimes spout at other people that if we want things to be different in terms of laws, in terms of the government impacting our lives, we shouldn't be spending 99% of our attention on the goddamn president. we have state laws, we have governors, we have senators, we have representatives, we have local regulators, we have lobbyists. I'm friends with someone who is a politician in Seattle, and so when I talk with her and because I've been friends with her for a long time. In fact, when I first met her, I said, because she was she had worked in lobbying.
Okay.
And
was she thinking of running at the time?
She had kind of been thinking about it. I remember saying to her, "You should be a politician.
Oh, okay.
You're amazing. Like
Nice.
You give great speeches. You have all the talking points. Your politics are great. Your life is extremely buttoned up. She goes to a Lutheran church every Sunday.
She's got everything.
Yeah, there's nothing nefarious about her life. She dresses like
ready to be
like Hillary Clinton. She dresses like Hillary Clinton, and I don't know how much she was motivated to do it, but fast forward, now she's an elected official in Washington State. So, but I would learn from her that things are happening that impact my life here in Seattle that have nothing to do with the president of the United States.
And if you don't know about it, you're screwed because you don't get a voice. Yeah. So the other thing about this is that the podcast, rewind 13 years ago. Would you have decided not to go through and do it if someone had told you, hey, just so you know, if you do this, you're not going to make $10 billion?
Well, I was 99.9% sure that at the most I would earn $1 an hour or something by the end of the thing.
So the fallacy, I think, because again, one of the things is like, look, if you don't have the profit motive, I do believe in the profit motive, but there's reason. Like if right now you said to me, hey, Berto, what's your dream? And I told you, like, my dream is to do, like make video games, let's say, right? And you're like, okay, well, what is the amount of money you would need to make eventually, let's say in 5-10 years, for you to feel like you did it and you made it and you're happy? It's not $100 billion. It's maybe it's 5 million.
Well, also CEOs don't do shit anyway.
Right.
So, who gives a shit?
Even if you'd say, well, no, you're misunderstanding, but it doesn't matter. Like, the point is, you don't need to promise someone that they will make 200, 400, $1 trillion. You don't need to promise that for the profit motive.
Right.
That's unnecessary by 1,000 orders of magnitude. Like, it's just.
I mean, I will say I do know people personally who are maybe not $100 billion, but they are fairly motivated by rolls of the dice in terms of job stuff that they do, investments and startups, that they are hoping to strike it rich. Not just to be regular Seattle rich, but like rich. Right? And that makes them obsessed with their...
And if someone told them right now that even if they're wildly successful, they will not make $100 billion, would they stop?
Right.
Like, no, they're not. Because imagine if someone could guarantee you, like, listen, you're going to make 50 million, but you're not going to be a billionaire. You stop doing what you're like, come on.
Well, I think some would, which is a problem.
Well,
but most wouldn't. I don't.
The ones that would probably are not the ones we need.
Right.
Because guess what? Most of the innovation hasn't been done in the moments where the people were about to make $1 billion. They were done where they were hoping it would be successful, but they had no pennies to their name.
Yeah, I mean, Wozniak, they were not doing that well, and they were in a garage.
So the Google guys, like, sure, I'm sure that they were hoping they would be a successful startup, but it's not like when they were inventing their search algorithm, they're like, tomorrow we get that $100 billion. No.
Yeah. All right. Well, Berto, good job on your adventure into running the podcast. And let's take a break. We get back. Let's answer some emails. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. Let's do an OPP, Berto.
OPP.
So these people became patrons all the way back in June of 2020 and have stayed patrons ever since. We have...
That was when the pandemic was ending.
Mission accomplished. We have Matan from Berlin.
Oh.
We have Eowyn.
Eowyn!
Which I don't know.
Is that when Eowyn came on?
From Seattle, who's an annual upper tier patron.
Nice.
We have Dakota from God Knows Where, Kendall from Virginia. Alexa from God knows where. Becky,
Wait, Alexa? Like the Alexa that you can ask questions of?
she's an annual patron. We have Becky from New York, New York.
Oh,
Annalisa from Portland, who's an upper
that's
tier
a great
patron.
name.
Nina from God knows where. Ashley from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, I believe. MI, is that Michigan? Nader from Lima, Peru.
What? Oh, he must have some great recommendations for ceviche restaurants.
Melissa from Great Britain. Emil from
Nice.
God knows where, upper tier patron. Nico from God knows where. Jay from Tennessee.
Tennessee?
Courtney from Sarasota, Florida. Emma, Ruby, and Utara from God knows where. Ellis from NE, Nebraska.
You know, I recently thought that New England was a state because someone was asking me, and I was like, well, I think it's a state.
Really?
Yeah, I thought New England was a state.
Well, was that just a brain fart or?
No. I mean, if you had Barrow, what is New England? And I hadn't looked it up. I've been like, it's a state in the East Coast. It's,
Like New Mexico.
well, but it's like Massachusetts, Vermont, New England.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. And then something wasn't ringing where I was like, because at first I was like, oh, it's a city. Wait, it can't be a city. No, it's a state. It's a state. I didn't know it was this region of several states.
I just took you down a couple notches in respect.
Why would I know that? Do you want me to ask you some Columbia questions?
Well, I thought you knew more things about things like that.
You know, you unlearn new things about people.
Is this you being a Colombian?
What's
and
the second largest river in Colombia? You don't know.
I don't know any river in Colombia.
Well, you know one. The largest river that touches Colombia. You can probably guess.
The Amazon?
Yeah.
Oh.
See, you know more about Colombia than I know about.
Scott from Connecticut, which is in New England. Caitlin from Hagerstown, Maryland, which Caitlin must be rich.
I mean, listen, they say a sleepy New England town. That's a common thing people say.
Well, you have the New England Patriots
New
as well.
England Patriots.
Yeah.
Where are the New England Patriots from?
Boston-ish, I think.
They're not from New England?
Yeah. Karen, who up tier patron from Berkeley, California.
Oh, nice.
Irene from Jakarta.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wait. I said Utara earlier. That's just part of this long Jakarta situation for Irene.
Oh, okay.
Trish from Connecticut, Woodstock. Is that where Woodstock? Is that Woodstock?
No, that was in
Woodstock?
California,
Or Woodstock,
right?
Woodstock, New York.
Wait, Woodstock was on the East Coast? Okay.
Mackenzie from Franklin, Tennessee. Eileen from Montreal. And Madeline from God knows where. Thank you for becoming a patron all the way back in June of 2020 and staying patron through thick and thin. It really is a great thing that we have patrons, because if there weren't patrons, Berto, you and I would not be here right now.
No, I have better things to do with my time, like play Age of Empires.
With me.
With you.
All right, so I have a story about Constance Wu that came out a bit ago in July that I want to talk about. So Constance Wu, what do you know who she is?
The name sounds familiar.
She's an actress, Taiwanese-American actress from Virginia.
Okay.
She's on Fresh Off the Boat. She's the mom. You ever see that show?
No.
It's kind of funny. Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
She was the lead.
Oh, is she the lead or the funny one?
The lead.
Okay.
The funny one is what's her face.
Okay.
And then she was in Hustlers with J-Lo. So
I didn't see that. But
in 2019, she posted a bunch of tweets. So basically, from my understanding of the story, Constance Wu, who, by the way, Fresh Off the Boat, Crazy Rich Asians, she is a delight. I think she completely carried Crazy Rich Asians. Whenever I see Asian Americans doing well in life, it just gives me so much joy and pride. So
that's great.
So I think what was happening was with Crazy Rich Asians, which came around, so she was on Fresh Off the Boat for a long time, and that was, I think, this pretty big step forward for her in her career when she has a regular TV show.
Yeah.
And she was the main comedic person on the show. The show kind of revolves around her. Then she gets Crazy Rich Asians, and it was this whole phenomenon at the time. I don't know if you remember. It was this.
When Crazy Rich Asians came out?
When that came out, it was just.
Yeah, it was huge.
Even though it's just kind of a regular rom-com.
Yeah, but it went like ballistic. Like everyone was like talking about it, and my Asian friends were really talking about it.
Yeah, and she was by far the standout person. The other gal, which I can't remember her name, but then you had the lead guy.
The lead guy also caused a lot of waves too.
Yeah, but it was mainly Constance Wu. Anyway, so I think what was happening for her was she was probably getting a lot of offers, right? and she's tied by contract to Fresh Off the Boat.
Oh, because that's an ongoing series?
Yeah.
I see.
And Fresh Off the Boat at this point is a very obscure TV show, sitcom, that probably isn't very prestigious, probably isn't very interesting to her, probably isn't very lucrative.
I saw a couple of YouTube clips that now I realize are from that show.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
She's Asian American, but she plays an immigrant Chinese woman or maybe Taiwanese woman, and she plays like a funny traditional. Anyway. Point is she's really funny and she has excellent comedic timing. Anyway, so she posted a bunch of tweets and saying that she was annoyed with the network of the Fresh Off the Boat is on for renewing her show. Because that forced her to pull out of
from a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, and particularly one passion project that she wanted to work on. She wanted this passion project, I think a movie, because it was really going to be her passion, an acting job that she was really looking forward to. As she's just used to posting stuff on Twitter and getting some attention, but maybe not as much attention as she's getting at this point, she would say, "Oh, just can't believe it." Like, and so one of her tweets was, "So upset right now that I'm literally crying."
Oh, I could see this backfiring tremendously.
Why? Why do you see it backfiring?
People need Twitter advisors. Well, because it's just going to come off as entitled and honestly a little tone deaf, because no one gets series that get renewed, and then to get a series renewed is a big deal. And so you're already a working actress. That's a big deal. And the extreme of the reaction. Now, listen, I'm saying all this as I do understand where she's coming from, and that sounds very hard and disappointing and to be tied to a contract. But saying like, I'm in tears, that this is the worst thing that's ever happened, I could totally see people not reacting well to that. Plus, they might feel betrayed if they're fans of the show, if they're fans of the meaning of the show and all that stuff.
Yeah, plus add in a good dose of sexism, and also the notion that you're a brown person and you're successful in the United States, you need to know your place and shut up. It's like when an NBA player talks about politics, or they're just like,
shut up, boy.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So there's a fair amount of that as well, because if she were a guy, would she get the same amount of? I doubt it.
I don't know the same amount, but in fact, well, anyways, I would see guys get similar reactions about entitlement.
Slightly though, but not like an entire Twitter storm of horribleness. The other thing I want to say is that
not sure
that I totally agree with why people would react against that, and it's become such a norm for us that we're like, well, yeah, of course she's going to get a backlash to that. And I think that's a travesty, that a human being is working, and it's a job. The Fresh Off the Boat, it's a job, and sure, she's probably getting paid well, but in all likelihood, this passion project of hers was paying the same or less. But at the very least, it was a job that she really wanted. Yes, she likes Fresh Off the Boat, but she's been doing it for a long time, and she would rather do this other thing, or at the very least, she would like time off from this TV show to do this other thing. And the contract said, no, you can't do that. Now, who knows what the conversation was? There's probably a lot of things that depend on that, right? It's like, well, if we let you go, it'll cost us $5 million and we don't have whatever. And she's under contract, so she loses. But she wasn't saying, I'm going to burn my house down or the studio down. She's like, I'm crying because I'm so upset that they're not going to work with me on this, and I can't do this passion project. And for people not to be able to understand what is happening, at the very least to be like, can't really relate to that. I don't, that'd be, I think, a reasonable response. I wonder what that's like to be a rich person or a famous person, and you have two famous gigs and one, it's just unrelatable. But for people to go after her, I just find to be a deplorable development that we have just normalized, that somehow it's just completely expected. Like it's, well, of course she got a backlash because she's a privileged person and she almost like she deserves it or something. I just feel like that's a horrible development in our society.
It is a horrible development. And here's the thing though. Imagine opening your window. Let's say you live in a crowded street opening your window and shouting to everyone like, oh my gosh, my life is ruined. I really, really wanted to get the 80-inch flat screen, but like they don't have it this week and I need a TV now, so I had to get the 70-inch. I could imagine, especially depending on what neighborhood you live in, many people being like, shut the F up. Like, do you know what I'm struggling with right now?
Well,
okay.
But even that, I would say, okay, fine. Can't someone just vent their feelings?
But see, this is the thing that this cuts both ways. People misinterpret things on social networks. They think it's their little close-knit group of supportive friends that they're talking to, but it's not. It's random asshole strangers from around the world.
Especially Twitter.
So if you, and listen, is it good that people would, especially, I don't know what they said, but I'm imagining they said some horrible things.
So it was so bad that she shut
that, okay,
everything down.
Is that good? No, that's terrible. I'm just saying people need some advisors because someone needs to whisper to people that are famous and say, listen, the world is not your little comfy, safe zone. People are horrible. Most people aren't horrible, but the people that are watching your tweets, there's going to be 20% or 10% that are horrible, some of the worst people, and they're going to take you down. So if you're going to post, promote your thing, say that roses are red, and otherwise, just know that people are going to hate on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Or we could change our culture because I feel like we're going off a cliff.
But it's not our culture. It's humanity.
I think it's our culture.
People used to clap and cheer because someone's getting hung in the public square.
Yes, but I think the specific manifestation of sexism and racism that culminates in the cancellation of particular individuals, and even just putting that aside, this idea that of all the things in the world that you would get a pitchfork over, you're attacking Constance Wu while oil companies are raping our world and systems are underfunded and politicians are claiming that raped women can't get pregnant. Like, you're pitchforking Constance Wu because she's crying about not being able to be in a movie that she really wanted to be in. I mean, what's wrong with you is my thing. I think we need, we should get pitchfork. There should be another mob of rational pitchforking that's like, no, people, knock it off.
Right. And a part of it, I think, is knock off tweeting on these platforms because guess what? By tweeting on the platforms, we feed the beast. Because now the people are waiting. Where's the next tweet I can react to? Don't.
Well, I don't because...
Right. And I'm not saying you. I'm saying like, now, look, am I empathetic to her situation? Absolutely. Especially like, no question the abuse. Like, no one should be treated like that, right? I'm even empathetic to her reaction about the show being renewed. I'm empathetic. I'm like, yeah,
totally,
that sucks, right?
Totally.
However, even if you could extract all the real trolls and get them the hell out of there and just have the negative reactions from more normal people, it still was tone deaf because, most people are struggling with real life issues.
Well, so there are tone deaf tweets like when John Legend and what's her name? What's his wife's name? She's actually half Asian, I believe. People are throwing their phones right now. But she made this tweet, and I have this. I might not have this right, but made this tweet. Is that what they say?
Tweeted this.
She tweeted this Twitter and said that they went to dinner and they ordered wine, but they didn't know how much the bottle of wine was going to cost. Yeah. And then they got their bill, and it was a $15,000 bottle of wine. $
15,000.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And she was like, oh well, or she tweeted the mistake and was like, well, I guess live and learn or something. I can't remember exactly. It wasn't like holy crap. It was more like laughing at yourself as this kind of funny thing and almost kind of humble bragging. You know what I mean? It's like, look, we can afford this. Maybe she got completely roasted. That's different.
I don't know, man, because I don't know what style of music or whatever, but
I don't know if she's a singer.
In R&B and hip hop, you have people flaunting their Bentleys and their Aston Martins and their things constantly.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing. But, when Kim Kardashian not too long ago goes on this rant about how the the small folk, using Game of Thrones language, are not working. You know, she was like ranting about how
that is tone deaf.
that's tone deaf.
Yeah.
Okay. When Constance Wu says, I'm crying because I can't be in a movie I want to be in, people need to fuck off and not attack her.
No, they don't need to attack her. Absolutely. No attacks. I'm just saying it's a little tone deaf. And tone deaf might not even be the right description. I'm just saying, listen, if you're telling that to
unaware of the assholery of the world is the way it should be stated, not tone deaf. Because tone deaf is Kim Kardashian. What Constance Wu did was she was unaware of how many assholes there are on Twitter.
Yes, and look, I'm not an asshole, right? But I would still tell her, like, don't post that. Like, even if it was just on Facebook, right? I'd be like, don't post that.
But if she said it to you, you wouldn't think.
Well, if she said it to me, I'm like, listen, that sucks. I get it. I've had frustrations like that. Like, I get it. It's just that, look, this happens even on Facebook with more mundane stuff that people post, like, because most often, what I've noticed is the people that post the most often are humble bragging 24/7, right? Like, so I'll see posts, and I used to do this too, and I kind of stopped, but I'll notice people posting things, and they only post really great things that have happened to them, and I can imagine that doesn't rub everyone the right way. Some people are like, now it's not good. It's, you shouldn't have FOMO or whatever. But then when you take it to the extreme and say, oh, I'm devastated right now. I just accepted my new offer. It's just a freaking $1 million bonus package. But I really wanted to sell one that's $2 million. It's like, you're just not going to get a lot of support.
Yeah, well,
you're not.
But that's not an apt analogy. We don't know how much she was getting paid.
Well, but fine, forget the money. It's just that either way, saying, damn it, my fucking successful show just got renewed and I wanted to do this movie. It's just not a lot of people that can relate, and therefore it's not going to get a lot of support.
I don't know. I can relate. I think I have never been in a situation like that, but I can imagine a situation where it'd be like,
I'm
crap.
saying even on Facebook, it would be like, I'm not saying she would get roasted, but probably a lot of people would either just thumbs up and not say anything, or even like, hey, life goes on, girl, or something,
Well, I don't understand why, anyway, I don't understand why people can't just have an attitude of like, yeah, that sucks. Moving on,
Well, because of the extreme level of her reaction and the fact that she posted it for the world, there is a level of narcissism that, hey, Twitter world, you must know that right now my world is ruined because of this little situation. And when people read that, they might go, right now, Ukraine, people are fleeing from their homes.
Well, now, not then, but
I'm saying, like, there's always some tragedy around the world that's way worse than whatever the hell is going on.
Well, you don't want to be
If you're posting on Twitter, you do.
So you can only post on Ukrainian Twitter. Things on Twitter.
Listen, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal because I've been just as narcissistic or worse than most people in the world. But what I started doing on Facebook is like I stopped posting about myself. And lately, the only posts that I make, like every once in a blue moon, is like, this Ukraine thing is terrible or whatever.
Oh, Berto, that's so terrible.
Because it's the world. It's not my little...
Facebook is for pictures of your kids.
No, because Facebook has become probably 2,000 people that don't give a shit about my life.
Why are you on Facebook then?
I'm only on Facebook now for two reasons. One...
To pontificate about politics?
No, to check in on certain people. And every now and then to make a social point.
Oh, boring.
But on WhatsApp... which are my nice, close-knit groups, that's where I post all my actual pictures. That's okay. I don't care. That's where I post my pictures and my things to my family, to like, hey, here's the things.
I'm on Facebook. I'm friends with my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister.
But I don't want to die on that hill because look, fine. I could go through and call my Facebook friends to really just like a group of like maybe 100 people or something, right? But on Twitter?
Yeah.
On Twitter? I cannot picture myself posting on Twitter because when I have posted on Twitter...
Who knows what her Twitter presence and followership was prior to this? Because I would suspect that she had a large group of people, probably a lot of Asian Americans, honestly, who loved her Twitter. Yeah. And she's a funny, lighthearted person. And there were probably a lot of funny, lighthearted, personal sort of tweets, and she never got burned, and then she said this, and then her fans probably didn't care or probably supportive or neutral, but the the Twitter bullies, she was the target of the day, which if they just had a different target for that day, she probably would have been scot-free, because there are so many tweets that happen on Twitter.
And that people don't see them. Yeah. Look, I agree with you 100%. Look, the reaction shouldn't have been there. The bullies should have to go, all of it. And celebrities, unfortunately, they get this misconception that, oh, people love me. I probably can say whatever I can and people love me. People love you because very well curated things have been put out that a niche following, or sometimes bigger following, like it. What is curated? Someone wrote a carefully written script, filmed it carefully, put you in just the right light, put you out with just the right lines. And
but you and I, Berto, are internet people.
Yeah.
Famous.
And think about how much hate you get and I get from little comments in one episode of this show.
But we also, right now, are speaking honestly off the cuff.
Yes.
We don't have a team of PR people that are, everything's being sifted through.
Right. But if our video was shown to 1 billion people.
Yeah. But
there'd be, if 1%
I don't want to live in that world. I just don't want to live in that world. I want to live in a world where the bullies are not normalized.
I hear you. And so therefore, let's not post on Twitter.
I don't. I do, but not anything personal.
Let's call out the bullies. Let's starve them of oxygen.
That's my point, is that the story should not be Constance Wu got canceled. It should be bullies are assholes.
I agree with that. What if there had been all these articles showcasing these bullies by name? Look at this person. Look at this person. Look at this person. They have to go. And then... Yeah. But then...
Now, I want to pause before I forget and say that there's a chance I don't know the whole Constance Wu story. So if someone out there...
I know zero of it.
So if there's someone out there that's just like, no, you don't understand. She was cancelable. Okay, fine. Email me. I'm genuinely curious.
All I'm saying,
please
though,
don't
is
hate us.
If I were her friend, I would have told her, girl, don't do it.
She, last month or July, 2 months ago, she comes back on Twitter.
Okay.
After 3 years. And she says, 3 years ago, when I made careless tweets of a good friend about the renewal of my TV show, it ignited outrage and internet shaming that got pretty severe.
Yeah.
I felt awful about what I said, and when a few DMs from a fellow Asian actress told me I had become a blight on the Asian American community.
Okay,
I started feeling like I didn't even deserve to live anymore.
Yeah, that's extreme.
That I was a disgrace to Asian Americans, and they'd be better off without me.
What? Okay, so this is the part where my ship now leaves the shore, because what the F had any of this to do with Asian Americans? Now, I hear you.
That's what I'm saying.
I hear you screaming about it, but I'm saying this should have simply been, if anything, some complaints about, hey, you rich, entitled people. End of story. Why Asian American?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with it?
It's always about race, my friend. She goes on to say, there's some excerpts here. Luckily, a friend found me. So there was suicide attempts. Luckily,
for real?
Yeah. Luckily, a friend found me and rushed me to the ER. For the next few years, I put my career aside to focus on my mental health. I'll admit it hurt a lot, and I'm just sort of skipping through. That's why I wrote my book and why I'm here today, to reach out and help people talk about the uncomfortable stuff in order to understand it. So she's publishing a book and probably learned a lot about how to tweet. But this is a problem, Berto. Like, it's got to change. Okay, so I have some gifts for you, Berto. So
okay, sorry. I don't disagree with anything you said about how it shouldn't be that way and how these people are horrible. And it should have never been about Asian Americans to begin with. It should have never even been about anything except maybe a couple of friends reaching out and saying, hey,
it's a little privilege.
Cool it.
Yeah. So you and I went to Disneyland at the beginning of April.
Yes.
Since that time, I have been gathering some gifts for you.
Oh.
But then you started getting COVID, and then
I never got COVID.
But your kids would get sick. My wife got
COVID. My kids got sick.
But then your kids would also get sick with other things, and then you'd wonder if they had COVID, so you wouldn't come over. So since the beginning of April, and it's mid-September now, we've seen you've come over to my house maybe once or twice, and both times I keep forgetting to give you the gifts. But I'm gonna give you the gifts now, Berto.
But if I keep waiting, you'll get more and more gifts accumulating.
So one, this is just a dumb gift, but we have a new card
Woo.
with you and I.
Yes.
And so it's just a new card.
Oh, this is neat, dude.
It's a card for the fans.
I love this.
I also have another shirt for you.
Oh,
but you
can I
can't
wear it on the 14th?
You will, but you
Okay.
can't say what it is because we're going to reveal this merch during our live show. And this episode right now might actually air after the live show.
Okay, I will only look at it. Okay. Ooh, whoa, that's weird. That's... Ew.
I found...
We're going to show this live? Oh, okay.
So I have another gift for you. I don't know why I have this shirt, but I think it's because a fan sent it to the university, and I've had it ever since.
Okay.
So...
Great. Well, I love that.
So did you ever have that? Did I ever give you?
Gosh, no, but this is amazing. Can I show this one, or is this one
Yeah,
also?
you can. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Well,
this...
the cameras aren't on anymore.
Oh, okay.
You have to read it.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and... Mother! Oh.
Referring to the movie.
Yeah, Kent. I got a matinee of Les Mis. Masturbation? Love it. I'm doing it right now. I forgot that. It turns out reality doesn't exist until someone looks at it, which means you make your own reality. Buy my book.
So it's just a bunch of Berto quotes.
God damn it. They put a whole bunch of random quotes on my t-shirt. They must be from movies I haven't seen.
I must have shown you a picture of that shirt.
I've never, but this is the grandest. I don't even want to wear this shirt.
So I think what happened.
I
Okay.
want to frame it.
So here's
make love to it.
Here's what I think happened with that shirt. It was sent in 2020, but to the university. But our university was shut down.
Okay.
And all of us were working from home. And so I didn't go back to the university. I didn't, for 12 months, I didn't set foot in the university. And so I got that shirt, and she also made me a shirt.
Oh, man.
And I got that shirt in mid 2021, right? And then I moved.
Okay.
Remember? So, and I probably moved. Well, anyway, so I packed and moved, and so it was in a box. And then recently, I was going through a box of old stuff from the move, and I'm like, "Why do I have this? This is Berto's shirt." So there you go. So it's not a gift for me.
you.
But here is the gift that I've been wanting to give to you. Is this? It's a you have to describe it.
Oh, this is beautiful. This is from Disney. It is a picture of me and some random woman that looks suspiciously like my wife. We are slurping Lady and the Tramp style, like where, I've got one straw, she's got a straw. We're slurping this delicious looking chocolatey drink with a cherry and whipped cream on top, which I kind of just want to rub on my face. And it looks awesome. It's a grand picture. And framed. Thank you so much. This is really something.
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Hopefully you have a spot for it in your house. On the piano, maybe.
Oh my gosh, I will find a grand spot for this.
Do you have a romantic picture of you and your wife in your house? Yeah,
no.
I feel like I think the only pictures I see in your house are of your kids and your brother-in-law.
Yeah. So you know what? This will be our first romantic picture ever. Oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah. So I took that picture when we were at Ghirardelli in California Adventure.
But this just makes me want to go back. Oh.
I know.
We need to take another Disney trip.
Yeah. We could go to Orlando, though, because Orlando has, they also have a lot of other things.
Come to us. Come to us. Come to us. Come with us next time we go. All right. This is amazing.
They have Epcot in Orlando.
Oh, yeah. Epcot is wonderful.
They have SeaWorld, I believe.
I've never been to SeaWorld.
That's pretty amazing. They have Medieval Times.
Medieval Times.
Yeah.
Cable Guy.
And
we can reenact Cable Guy.
Yeah. Janine Garofalo in that movie.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much. This is really great.
So I finally
you can finally unload the gifts.
Yeah. All right, let's do a couple more emails. What do you say?
Let's do it.
So patron Alexis said, "Hi, Kirk. I'm 29, and I have been anxious." So this is about health anxiety, which she knows you and I would be able to relate to. "Hi, Kirk. I'm 29 and have been anxious about getting every disease under the sun since I was young.
Oh.
I worried about lung cancer years ago, probably before I actually got it.
Oh, my gosh.
Luckily, the lung cancer I have currently is a carcinoid tumor and by far the best prognosis out of any other kind. but it's rarer still for someone my age. The median age of this diagnosis is 50-something. This confirmation of my worst fears has been highly traumatic for me. I now feel like every ache and pain is even more guaranteed to be dire.
Oof.
I do see a therapist and am seeking out medication as well. I guess I'm writing because I know you and Berto have talked about hypochondria, and Berto had his own health issues. I was hoping maybe he could share about how dealing with that reality and any insights of growth. I'm also writing because your podcast is one of the most important things I've ever discovered in my life, and over the years of writing to you, I definitely consider you to be a friend, a famous friend of which I am one of thousands of fans who I only write to every once in a while, but to me, a friend. So I wanted you to know. Yeah, we met Alexis, by the way, in person.
Oh, at one of the shows?
Yeah.
Nice.
And she's been writing in for a long time. So
amazing.
So yeah, she's a friend. Absolutely.
She's a friend of the show and of us.
So Berto, as a fellow hypochondriac who actually did come down with something serious, can you relate or help Alexis in some way?
Totally. Now listen, I think that there's like probably 3 layers to my hypochondria throughout the years, because one layer was the purely superficial self-defense mechanism layer, and that is equivalent to, when you just expect failure so that you won't be disappointed. Like you're gonna go, you're gonna take the test, you're like, I just know I'm gonna fail it, that way when you get a C, you're like, oh my gosh, I got a C, right? Okay. So I never had that with academics, but I did have it with health. So for the longest time, especially in my 20s, every time I would feel a weird pain, I would just be like, man, it's probably appendicitis, or maybe I have rabies, not rabies, but like something, tetanus or something, right? And
alien in your stomach.
Alien in my stomach. And my thinking, really, my process in my head, and I was self-aware of it, but I would still do it, was if I say the words out loud that are the worst things right now, then I can face it, because it might be that, but it's probably not, but it might. So it was sort of like, let's plan for the worst case scenario here. That was one layer. There was another layer, which I think was from watching my grandma actually be a hypochondriac constantly, which was a certain amount of paranoia, and that was a little bit more under the surface. I wouldn't actually verbalize that much, but I think I was, looking back, quite afraid of being sick, Not to mention, when I was a kid, I was sick a lot. Okay.
But I also think that when one is neglected emotionally, as you unarguably, undebatably were, abandoned by your mom, there's a general anxiety that builds in the individual of, I am unsafe.
Yeah.
And when we have, say, a physical notion that's always a monkey on our back, that's always like, you're unsafe. We often will look for a concrete manifestation to focus on that sort of embodies the anxiety, and sometimes that can result in
makes all too much sense. And then the third level was actually, again, sort of more mundane, but pretty deep, because it was my dad. My dad was a doctor, and he was always going on and on about viruses and bacteria on all surfaces, and in milk that wasn't boiled enough, and in water. And then some of it was
milk
borne out.
That wasn't boiled enough.
Yeah, because...
So he would repasteurize?
Well, this is part of the issue. Our milk when I was a kid wasn't pasteurized at all. They would come by with the whole milk, and you would just get the metal with the whole milk in it. And
whole milk can be pasteurized.
It was straight from cows. It was just straight from cows.
Yeah, we had that too, by the way.
So my dad, and look, to be fair, my dad had seen a horror show in Colombian hospitals and stuff. So I get where he was coming from, but at the same time, it sort of left this feeling in me like no surface was safe. Everything needed to be sterilized, right? Okay. And when I was a kid, I wasn't like that. But as I grew up and I kind of lived on my own and then lived with my future wife and stuff, I became that way. I was like, everything needs to be sterile, So there was those 3 levels. Now, fast forward to in the last few years, I would say I had been sort of getting better from a lot of these things. I had been toning down my obsession with everything needing to be sterile. I had dealt with a lot of my anxiety through therapy and just other things in my life.
We did a whole long deep dive on hypochondriasis
Absolutely.
and health anxiety.
And about the little pains and aches, I had actually started, if I ever did it, it was almost a reference as a joke to the way I've been about that in the past. But then I got legitimately sick. And one thing that was unexpected is I actually thought, this did go through my mind, oh, great. This is the worst thing that could happen to a hypochondriac, right? But you know what, though? It didn't have I was afraid I was actually going to become really, really scared and stuff. But one thing that happened, and I don't know if this happened to the patron, is that because it became real, and then I had to deal with real doctors and go to real appointments and go to real surgery. It's like, okay, this is real. This is happening, and I have to process it. Everything else is actually just anxiety and just me being afraid of things, but this is real. And I had to put so much effort and energy into that reality that was real that it actually didn't leave me a lot of space and room for being afraid of other ailments.
Does it also give you this example of like, oh, this is what it's really like to be sick, where you have very noticeable ongoing symptoms.
That's a great point, because I
and these little random sensations.
Oh my God, dude!
That I have at the middle of the night. Like normally I'd be freaked out about it. Like unless this blossoms into a massive symptom, it's probably nothing.
100 billion%, because I never understood what chronic illness meant, or what really, like, I need to call 911, like what that really meant until it meant something. And it put in perspective all those times where I was like, after a heavy meal, dude, I might have appendicitis. Where it's like, oh, you mean a little gas in your intestine? It puts so many things in context. So I hope that the experience you have been through has had a similar effect, in that it it's like, okay, yeah, some things are real emergencies, some things are real bad, and those are real and we need to deal with them, but not everything is. And that is kind of what's been, if anything's been helpful for me about this, that's been one of those things.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm glad for you.
I don't think I knew that consciously, like as we were talking about it. I'm realizing that that's true, but it is true. As I sat in the hospital, for example, I kept thinking about how, wow, this is what people go through. This is what people go through. They discover they have something really bad, and they have to go to the hospital, and they have to actually sit there and deal with it. The last time I had to deal with something like that, other than my car crash when I was 18, I was getting my tonsils removed. I was like probably 5 or 6 or 7 or something. And so I didn't really have that like notion of, wow. And then, the thought occurred to me, because I have a cousin that's had ailments for years, and it's just like, wow, this is what it's like to live every day with pain. And I am lucky because there is a treatment and I can get better.
You want to tell people again what you have?
Oh yeah. So I developed sort of two things. One is an autoimmune disorder called Graves' disease, which is thyroid related, but it's not just about the thyroid. It is my immunity system sort of attacking my own cells, and potentially related, potentially not. Also developed some thyroid cancer, so my thyroid had to be removed. So both of these things are real and very damaging. Thyroid cancer that I had wasn't malignant, luckily, but anyways, so yeah, these were definitely not simply in my head.
Right. So let's read a few more here and then let's skedaddle. Patron Cameron from Southern California, she says, I'm a 4th generation Hapa female, which is like me. We call ourselves Yonseis. Although I am Japanese American, I don't really look it. I am curvy, take after my father's side of the family, and my married name is Dominguez. Is that how you pronounce it?
Dominguez.
Portuguese name. People either think I'm Mexican American, even addressing me in Spanish, or dismissing that I am Japanese because of the way I look. Just chiming in here. When I was growing up, very frequently, I would be mistaken for Mexican or Native American.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think mainly because half Asians they didn't know they existed.
And I've seen some pictures of you young, especially when you had your long hair, where if you rewind the clock 25 years and you ask me what nationality is this person, I could have said Native American.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They say, I have listened to your episodes where you discuss how people of mixed race can have a hard time finding their place between cultures. I've experienced this and have become increasingly more enraged over the years when people have the nerve to not believe my heritage because they think I don't look Asian enough. I feel like you are the big brother I never had. I love hearing all the stories about your family. I was thrilled when you read the you were a Japanese American list. Anyway, my grandmother was a seamstress and my grandfather was a gardener. So that's very stereotypical.
Yeah.
Japanese American. My grandfather was a brave member of the 442nd.
Oh, wow.
Do you know the 442nd?
Yeah.
The most decorated
right.
division or whatever group of army guys in World War II. Japanese guys who had family members that were being imprisoned.
Yeah, adding insult to injury
and my grandmother, along with my other relatives, were interned during the camps. And by the way, chiming in, having a family member in the 442nd is like having a family member who's royalty or something.
Of course.
Because it's,
It's huge.
Yeah. Like, I wish I had a family member.
I had a relative of mine from many generations ago was one of the Spanish soldiers that came to the New World and killed some natives. It's really great.
Oh, by the way, so I saw this cringy video on Reddit where people were getting their DNA results.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a reaction video, sort of classic where they're younger people and they're like, they did the DNA test and they were about to reveal it to them and they were asking them what they wanted to see.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of Latino, Asian, Caribbean, non-white people, Americans. And a lot of them were saying, oh, well, I hope that it comes up that I am Mexican or Native American or something. And then when they got their DNA results, it was like 75% white.
Yeah, Iberian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20% random other things, Native South American.
That's my boat.
They were like really disappointed.
Yeah, that was the same thing that happened to me.
But when I looked at them, I'm like, you're obviously white. I mean, who knows what your actual DNA is?
It's like, would you call me white?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
It's hard for me to know because I know you and I know you're mixed. But
and no one ever in this country has treated me as white. And I'm not saying that from a like, oh, I've been oppressed. I just mean from a more mundane level. Like, no one I've ever met has ever been like, oh, are you from Connecticut? Or, like it just doesn't. It's obvious that I am a foreigner.
All you got to be is a slight shade of olive
right.
in the United States to be considered some exotic
right.
creature from another planet.
So I've never considered myself white.
But to me, knowing history and knowing what native Colombians look like, I would have said you were at least half white, if not more.
Certainly.
Like our friend Carlos, who's Mexican, he doesn't look a lick.
Carlos looks more white in my mind than I do.
But not that much more white than you.
And this is just about how we perceive ourselves. Because until I took that test, not only if you had asked me, but just like what I believed about myself is I was like 70% native. But
in Colombia, didn't you look more white than the average Colombian?
Of course, but I didn't put that together.
But in the States, in relative to...
even when I was in Colombia, I didn't feel white. I felt Latino, Colombian, whatever. It's a weird thing because like there were people in my school that were definitely white with freckles. Not the majority, but a few of them. And I was like, okay, well, that's a white person. And I guess I didn't use these terms. Like, even the words didn't exist for us. Like, I wouldn't say, oh, él es blanco. Like, that does exist. Sorry, that's not true. But I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
It was just mentally, I would certainly not group myself into that, right?
Well, it's the European cultural notion of you're either white or you're not.
And you're either very white or you're not.
Yeah.
And so for me, like this happened to Italians in this country, right? Like, they were not white according to... So... For me, I never felt that way. When I got my DNA results, I was like, what? The fact, what annoys me is on all the forms that I have to check white, That annoys me. And again, it's not because like I hate white or something. It's just because I never identified myself as being white.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things we could talk about. One is like, what is identity? And what do we mean by white? When you see that on the survey, is that really accurate? Even though your ancestors mostly came from Europe. Right. But you came from the Iberian Peninsula, which is a little different than coming from England and France.
Even there was already mix. And no matter what, I am a mix. Like I am a mix of races.
Right. And so is it more accurate to say that you're some other thing other than white?
Yeah.
DNA wise, but you came a different direction, you know? But the whole thing is a farce because you could have a white person who was Irish and they were oppressed and poor, and when they came to the States, they were Catholic and oppressed and poor, and
you never know.
And but they're whiter than English people, and yet they put white, but that doesn't represent the strife that their family has been through and continues to go through. So the whole thing is just one big ridiculousness.
Yeah, and I'm no longer like I would have said before, you know, I don't know how many years ago, I would have said like, well, because I don't want to think of my ancestors as being, nowadays I look at it differently. I'm like, okay, well, that's just the reality of the situation. And it doesn't relate to me. Like, this is not who I am. It has no bearing on me. It's just that, you know, we all have histories that include both good and bad people.
Yeah, right. And I think it challenges a couple things. One is that if you are Latinx in the United States, you consider yourself to be one of the brown people, you know, like for yourself, you're from Colombia.
Right.
And you're treated like a brown person. You're treated like a minority. You're treated like a non-European.
Right.
And when you realize, oh, but I am European, I am part of the conquistador class. I am an invader. I am an enslaver. That is my ancestry. I'm just as bad as the plantation owners in the South. That is most of my heritage. It's in the DNA. And especially when it comes to South America, I mean, you know, you could argue there are a fair amount of white people that came over to the United States in the 1700s or 1800s, early 1900s,
their families
who weren't this. But if you got white in you in Colombia, in all likelihood, it was from that early wave of conquistadors, you know, and that sort of thing. Maybe you were just a deckhand or something, but anyway, point is that identity of like, wait, so I'm treated like I'm a brown other in the United States, but I am of the stock that is more rapey and pillagey and colonially than what these white people are, you know what I mean? Like, my ancestors are worse than these white people's ancestors, and yet they're treating me like...
And that all used to go through my mind, and then the one funny or not funny thing that happened was playing Age of Empires. I actually started reading more about the Mongols.
You can play different civilizations from history, and Berto plays the Mongols.
The fact is, the Mongols were, you know, mass murderers, just like most civs back then. And the leaders of these civs gave birth to more people than everyone else, right? So all of us have some horrific ancestors.
Yeah. I think there's been analyses that, like, if you're Europeans, particularly if you're Eastern European, one of your ancestors is Genghis Khan.
Yeah. And so no matter what, you can't escape. It's just, it goes along with being a human animal. But now, it doesn't have to define any of us.
Yeah, anyway, so going on with this email, they were the most brave and positive people I've ever known, those who were in the internment camps in the 442nd. They are true heroes. Thank you for a wonderful podcast, and thank you for making me feel like I belong to the Japanese American culture. P.S. I have a small crush on Berto.
Oh, only small? That's sad. So I'm going to tweet. I am devastated because a patron only has a small crush on me. But that's very sweet.
So yeah, Cameron, my little Hapa Yonsei sister, I get it. You know, people don't think you look Japanese enough and Asian enough, so they won't accept you into their fold. And the way that I see that is that when you are oppressed as a group of people, as Asian Americans, and you're made to feel like dog crap by the majority, by the mainstream, by the dominant culture, you have to turn to each other for solace, for sanctuary, for support. And the way that you can identify your group that you have been grouped by the in-group of the white people is looks, because that's how the white people oppress.
Right.
They see an Asian American and they call you a gook. They call you a zipperhead. They call you a boater. They call you all those words. And if you don't look Asian, then you don't look like the sort of person that would be attacked in the same way that they've been attacked.
Right.
And so they don't want you, they don't feel like you've earned your lumps to be in their group.
Yeah.
And so they will reject you because of that. You know, there are black people who look white who are rejected by black groups. So you can't call yourself black. It's like, I'm just as black as you are, they'll say. And they're like, well, but you don't look. And so you have privilege. And it's like, okay, but am I not black? I have, one of my grandparents is black. And one of your grandparents is black. Does that mean,
think about the backlash to Obama. Like, oh, he's not black enough.
Yeah.
Not to mention the other backlash. He's too black. But like this is absolutely a reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And whenever anyone says to me, and I've had mutual friends of ours, Berto, have yelled in my face, not like super hostile, but basically emphatically that I am not a minority because I'm only half Japanese.
Uh-huh.
And I just want to say, so would you say that to Obama?
Right.
Because he's only half black?
Right.
Would you be yelling in his face? And do you think that I have not experienced? Now, are half Japanese kids today that oppressed, particularly in Seattle? Probably not.
Well,
but I was the brownest person for miles in Sammamish, Washington in the 1970s. So you better believe I got comments and looks.
Of course.
People thought I knew Kung Fu and karate. They thought they said,
so
where are you from?
You're 50% Japanese, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I am less than 30% other than white.
Yeah.
And I have experienced plenty of shit.
Right.
So come on now.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Okay, so let's end with a couple emails that I have been, for some reason, have been buried deep in our document here, Roberto. It goes back to the trial. The Depp Heard trial.
Okay.
So I figure we should get into this. Patron Allison from Vancouver, she says, all these trials have me thinking, should the jury's IQ be tested before the trial? Since jurors are randomly selected, and since the average IQ is 100, a lot of jurors must have lower IQs. This might be why so many verdicts come back completely off. Berto, what do you think?
I think this is a very interesting question about more than just juries, but it is a very dicey question too. I've been on a jury for part of the experience, meaning I was selected to be part of the jury up until one point, and then I finally got dismissed. But I got through a lot of it. It was many days worth of an experience. I gotta say, the kind of thing you're asked to do, at least from what I could tell, isn't the kind of thing that you have to be really great at math or at even learning about. But, would I think that if you can't even logic your way out of a situation, would you have some struggles? Yeah, maybe. But I'm not convinced. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with listening to the instructions. So if you can follow instructions and you can pay attention, that goes a long way from what I've seen. Now, that said, do I wish that more humans, and I'm not even going to say IQ, do I wish more humans had better logical capabilities and statistical understanding?
Critical thinking, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is an interesting thing to think about, that what is the average IQ of a juror?
Yeah.
I would imagine it's maybe a little higher than average, but maybe not a lot, because in order to be on a jury, I don't know, it's just hard to know. But,
well, the thing, they said random. The random part is only in getting the letter. Yeah. There's nothing random about the selection process.
Right. So I wanted to know from our attorney correspondents what, because they're trial lawyers as fans of the podcast, and I wanted to know what they thought. So I asked them. Attorney Craig says, I think it's understood that both sides want jurors that are generally intelligent, though I don't think there is a direct discussion about this. because that could be perceived as potentially discriminatory, which is a big no-no. I have been part of many discussions pre-voir dire at establishing question.
Pre-what?
Voir dire is when you're selecting the jurors, I believe.
Got it.
So pre-selection at establishing question types. So they're establishing the questions. So if you don't know the process, and I've been through it a number of times, and I have been on a jury, you get called for jury duty. So you go down to the courthouse and you sit in this big, cattle hall, and you will be selected randomly to, there'll be a trial of voir dire, and they get like 50 to 60 people from the cafeteria of people. And then both legal teams go through the 50 candidates and select the 12 or 9 jurors out of that group. And they ask each juror questions and try to figure out, and any side can kind of blackball or eliminate, they can veto one of the choices. And so both sides have to agree on the 12 jurors. So at establishing question types, to try and assess jurors' general intelligence level, such as what they do for a living, income, and where they live. So what Attorney Craig is like, there are questions that indirectly are trying to find out intelligence. Among other things, these questions are definitely designed to assess intelligence level. So it is certainly something we think about and try to assess when selecting jurors. That being said, it is true that some juries are smarter than others, quote unquote. Another reason many choose the judge as the trier of fact, meaning that you, in some situations, can choose a judge to decide on a civil case or something, and skip the jury. Some legal teams would be like, let's go with a judge this time because we believe it's more likely to be rational. Attorney Allison also says, in all the work I've done, IQ has not come up. We do look a lot at education and occupation, so those could be seen as proxies for IQ. So that's a similar thing as what Attorney Craig was saying.
Yep.
I'd say age and gender probably matter more, but it depends on the case. For the most part, attorneys are wary of having people with too much specialized expertise on a jury because they worry that other jurors could place too much weight on the person's views. All those people's views can be difficult to predict. For example, there is zero chance that either side would have seated you on this jury for the Amber Heard Johnny Depp, which, chiming in, I found to be true that at a lot of voir dires that I was in, there was a time when I was called into jury duty constantly. And I have a theory, because they say it's random when they just send it out to voters, but I have a theory that if you actually go in,
they flag you, like this person does it.
And then I was getting them like every 6 months, and I would have friends that had never been called.
Okay.
And I'm like, one, I've come down to the courthouse a number of times. I've been on juries, or at least one. And so I have friends of mine that have never even been called down as a cattle call. So what is going on here? And when I stopped going, that's when I stopped getting asked. Now I believe all of us should participate, but I feel like I've definitely participated more than average. Anyway, but yeah, so I would go and they would zero in on my profession, and it's usually that meant I was not going to be selected. You know? The other thing that I've said before on the podcast is that some legal teams would be acting like they'd be vetting me as a juror, but they were actually starting their trial unofficially, because if it was, say, about abuse, for example, they would ask me, so in your experience, would you say that if someone, because they can pretty much ask anything. I'm sure there are guidelines, but it's pretty open-ended. And they would say, hypothetically, if someone came to you and said they were abused, would you suspect that they had PTSD? And I might be like, well, maybe, but it kind of depends. And they'd be like, well, would you say there's a pretty good chance that they might have PTSD? And I'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, maybe. And over time, I started figuring out, this is just me taking a guess. I mean, who knows what's really happening? But the eventual jurors are in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the lawyer is already trying to influence those eventual jurors.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, going on.
And in a case where the judge can't yet say, oh, that's not a permissible,
Right. It's speculation or something. going on with Attorney Allison's email, there are plenty of times I can think of when
It seems
you
like
would
such a gap.
yeah. There are plenty of times I can think of when you, meaning me, would be fine with or prefer, or no, sorry, not me, just general you. There are plenty of times I can think of when you would be fine with or prefer a juror with a lower education. I don't know if you have seen, so I think that's getting at what you were saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have seen from the law tubers, I think those are lawyer YouTubers, who were in the courtroom or court TV, but they have released their guesses as to the demographics of the jurors in the Depp-Heard trial. Mm-hmm. A majority of the 9 original jurors were, in their opinion, in their 20s and 30s, and only 3 out of 9 presented as women in their view. 4 of the 7 final jurors were described as Asian. Although I don't know anything about Fairfax, Virginia, I would assume that is statistically improbable, so that's interesting. In my opinion, this case didn't seem as though it would have benefited from highly educated versus not as a jury. Why would you agree with that? Yeah,
because especially in a case like that where it's not so much about, for example, the thing I was involved in was about some sort of insurance fraud. And imagine something that's like banking and then this person did this transaction. Like you got to follow a lot of facts and details about the law and stuff. Where it's like, hey, there's 2 people. They have a relationship. It's he said, she said, and bad stuff happened. It's not a lot of technical detail there. Now, you could have a expert witness talking about the DNA evidence or something. But mostly it matters about, whose story do you believe here? So I just don't... in fact, I could see a lawyer thinking, I actually want... this kind of more blue collar, they want them to relate to the difficult stuff like that, mm-hmm. rather than, we need people who can really interpret the law.
Why would the majority of the jurors be Asian American, Berto?
In that case?
In the Depp-Heard trial from Fairfax, Virginia.
I don't know
because I'm just going to take a guess that most of the jurors in the voir dire selection process were not Asian. So how come they got chosen, do you think? So remember, both sides, the Depp team and the Heard team, decided, yes, we want most of our jurors to be Asian American.
Asian American. I don't know.
It's like, it's a mystery, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it wasn't even a thing. Maybe it just had to do with their occupation or their things. But I don't know. Total speculation. But I could see the Johnny Depp team, because the Johnny Depp team is trying to actually, it's funny, I've purged it all from my brain, but so Johnny Depp was trying to demonstrate that Amber Heard was defaming him, lying, that he was abusive. So I would wonder if Johnny Depp's team would say, well, Asian Americans are more traditional and more, they know women should be put in their place or something, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Maybe that was a thing.
Sure.
Who knows? But that got me thinking about the racial makeup, the ethnic makeup of Fairfax, Virginia.
Right.
Because in my head, maybe 1 Asian American lives in Fairfax. I mean, at least 4, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking there can't be many. So what do you think the breakout among the 5 groups that we will lump people into? White, Asian, Hispanic, Black, other.
In Virginia, I mean, I guess I would say 60% white.
What am I doing here? Okay. 66%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I would say probably 17% black.
Good. 19.
Okay. And then I would be I don't know, 3% Latino.
Latino doesn't even register.
Doesn't register. Then 3% Asian.
7% Asian, which I found...
It's a little higher than I would have thought.
To be... Yeah, I thought that was pretty different than I thought it'd be. So it's 2 or more races is 5%, and other race is 5%. So, that's probably in there somewhere, Latino. So I was trying to figure out, I had this one figure here, and I'm trying to figure out, right. So in Fairfax, what do you think the percentage is there?
Oh, because this was all of Virginia?
That was all of Virginia, yeah.
Oh, in Fairfax it's different?
So it's a city.
So is it a big city? Is it?
Let me how many people? Fairfax population is 23,000.
That's tiny.
That's very tiny.
Oh my God.
Why is it so tiny?
I would go like
That's like
70% white.
no, it's 54% white.
Oh, it's less. Then there must be some story to this city.
Yeah.
Because that's a tiny, tiny city.
Yeah. So what do you think Asian?
Okay, so it's higher. It's higher than average. I'm gonna go 20%.
Yeah, 19. So for
Okay.
every white person, for every Asian person, you only have about
Yeah.
2.5 white people,
That's interesting.
and Hispanic 18. So
The lawyer, your lawyer's comment in that case was assuming that Fairfax was like Virginia,
right,
but it turns out it's not.
right. So my guess is that Fairfax has some job thing that draws a lot. El Salvador there's a lot of El Salvador.
Well, it's like if I asked you like, hey, how many Indian people are there in Redmond or in Kirkland or in Bellevue
Right.
or in Seattle, right?
Right.
A few years ago, 10, 20 years ago, you would give me a number and it'd probably be right. If you were trying to use the same rationale now, you'd be way off.
Right. So if you don't know, Microsoft and other tech companies
Yeah.
draw a lot of Indian recruits, right? And so the East Side, where Berto and I grew up, and Stacy incidentally as well, there are. Or no, you didn't grow up there, but you live out there.
I've been
now.
there for forever now.
There are a lot of Indians, from India,
Yeah.
right? And in Seattle, you don't see very many Indians.
No.
It's just on the East Side.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like there's this this divide line
Yes.
that Lake Washington. But so by Asian, they might mean Indian. Like they're just lumping.
That could be. Yeah.
So number 1 is El Salvador, number 2 is India,
Okay.
and number 3 is Mexico. So I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Okay, let's do Seattle. Let's end with Seattle percentage, Berto. What do you think?
Percentage in Seattle proper. Okay. I'm
White.
gonna go 50% white.
66, dude.
Still high.
Shit ton of white people in
Still
Seattle.
high. Okay.
Yeah, a lot. Very, very white Seattle.
It's I'm gonna go 25% black.
No, 7%. There's hardly any black people in Seattle.
But there are areas that are okay. I'm way off then. 5%. No, 7% Latino.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And then it's like we got 65, we got 7, we got 7. Then I'm gonna go like 12% Asian.
Pretty good. 16. The biggest group of non-white people is Asian by far.
That makes sense. I don't know what I was
two or
thinking
more
about.
races is 8%, which is me.
Which makes sense because like when I go to other like Houston, for example, there are a lot of black people in Houston.
And a lot of Asians in Houston.
I guess I didn't see the Asians, but I saw, and you're right. When I go to Seattle, I don't see that many. That's that is fair.
Seattle is still very, very white. I'll look up Houston, but I'm pretty sure Houston has a fair amount. Yeah, white. So what do you think? White
In
percent?
Houston?
Yeah.
Well, it's still gonna be like 60% white.
I clicked on a button. 51%.
Oh, okay. And then it's gonna be 30% black.
23.
Okay. And then I don't know how many percentages we have, but let's say 20% Latino.
44.
44?
Yeah. So I think it allows people to click more than one.
Okay.
So, about half.
You're white and Latino.
Yeah. So about half say they're white and a little less.
That
than half
makes
say
sense.
they're
It's so
Latino.
close to the.
And then, so only 25% say they're white alone, not Hispanic.
I see.
And then Asians.
Asians are 7%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then 2 or more races, 7, which I always have to get in there because that's what I am. And aren't what you are, kind of?
Yeah.
2 or more?
I'm several. I'm more, yeah.
But when you fill out a form, what do you say? Do you say you're Latino?
I just say nowadays, I didn't used to have to do this, but nowadays, when they ask about race, I have to mark white. And when they ask about ethnicity, I say Latino. Yeah.
So you would say...
But I want to say, I should say mixed, but usually there is no option for mixed.
Yeah. But if there is mixed, do you say mixed?
I should say mixed. Yeah, I will start saying mixed every time I see the option.
Huh. I mean, it's interesting because by saying you're Latino, you're probably also saying you're mixed.
Right? Because, I mean, I've got white, like Native American, like Native South American. I also have Asian, and I have Jewish, and I have...
How much Asian?
I have like 3% or something like that.
Huh.
But remember, Asian is very big, right? Persia, like it could be a lot of things.
Yeah. If you're saying Latino in terms of the American definition, and you're saying you're not mixed, your only option there is if you're like 95% native,
right?
Native South American or native Mexican.
Yeah, that wouldn't even mean much.
So Latino, by definition, I would imagine means mixed, means Iberian and native mix.
Here's my deal. Southern European, 71.8%, out of which most of it is from the Basque region of Spain. That's 69.8% Basque.
Basque.
So
wow.
70% Basque.
So that's like, was that like northeast Spain or something?
I guess so. Okay, then what is the rest? Well, 20.9% East Asian and Indigenous American. Out of that, most of it is Indigenous American.
Right.
1.7% is Sub-Saharan African. And then I have...
So that means you have like a great-great-great-grandparent who was a black...
2% Ashkenazi Jewish. So I'm 2% Ashkenazi Jewish.
You know, Rebecca's 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. Did you know that?
Oh, wow. Yeah. And then I'm unassigned is 1.7%. I also have some Neanderthal in me.
Yeah, so do I. I think most of us do. So, you know, they lump in the East Asian Native American together. You know why?
Because so much of the Native Americans came from East Asia.
Yeah, well, they all did. They all came over in different waves.
Yeah.
And it's hard to differentiate the DNA because they didn't come over that long. They came over fairly recently.
That's right.
Well, I don't know the DNA, but sort of situation.
So I guess when it comes to Asian, it's only like Asian differentiated from Indigenous American. It's only 0.3.
All right. Well, if we're gonna play this game, I might as well give my DNA.
Pull out your DNA.
So I'm 48% Japan.
48%. Okay.
Yeah. Which, you know, that means my dad's 96% Japanese. My next is I'm 22% Sweden and Denmark, but mostly southern Sweden.
Okay.
And most specifically, the region of Savazo or Vetlanda.
Okay.
Vetlanda. It's where IKEA, I think, was.
Interesting.
It's like right in the middle, and it's very rural there, I believe. And then, wait, where are we going? So, and I know where all that comes from because my great-great-grandparents emigrated in like 1870 from Sweden. I'm 21% Scotland.
Oh, that's a lot of Scotland.
But I don't know how accurate that is because in my family lore, we had a lot of Welsh, so it could just be. And what is Welsh really? It's not like it's a race, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like probably your people came from there, but you know, the Welsh people that lived in Wales in the 1600s, they probably also came from Scotland and France and Germany, you know. So there's that. Oh, so I have another 2% from southern Japanese islands.
Japanese.
So that works up. So the total Japanese island.
Over 50%.
No, just 50%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Ireland 2%, Norway 1%, England, Northwestern Europe 4%. So every so often they will revise this.
Yeah.
But the one thing I don't have is Welsh DNA. It's like 20. So my mom is according to this, my mom is about 40% Scottish, 40% Swedish, and 10% other things from Northwestern Europe only.
I mean, you know the only thing you can say to that. Oh, Welsh.
Oh, my God. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because...
you deserve it.